Mullinger's Weekly Ramble.
Hello, it is Wednesday, the 2nd of April, 2025, and it is, of course, time for possibly your favourite podcast. Possibly it's not even in your top 10. Doesn't matter. You're listening anyway, and now you're in for the. Well, you could be tuning out right now, but please don't, because it is time for Mullinger's Weekly Ramble, and I am delighted to say that I am actually recording this in a different place. I know occasionally I'm recording in different places, but maybe the sound quality is a little bit better than the sound quality you are used to, because I am in a professional, proper podcast studio, if not the best podcast studio in the world. I am in Podstarter Studios here in beautiful Halifax, and I am here with a very, very special guest who, I wonder if you can guess who it is. Last week I told you how I was very honoured and excited and thrilled to be a guest on the second season of her new TV show, Showing Up. Yes, you're all regular listeners, aren't you? Well, both of you are regular listeners. Thank you, Mum, Dad. So my very special guest here today is an icon, a legend, a TV legend, someone would say, as I've pointed out many, many times. She and her incredible crew very kindly came to my home in Ross, New Brunswick last week to follow me around doing what I do. And now we are in Halifax for a very, very special reason, which we will come to in a bit. But first, please, all of you at home, put down your coffee cups or your wine glasses and give a big round of applause to our very special guest. It's Nancy Regan.
Can I applaud?
You can applaud yourself.
I'm going to do the sound effects, okay? Woo!
You're welcome to applaud yourself. It's not a great look, applauding oneself, but that's showing off, not showing up.
It's just a low-budget production, so I'm doing the sound effects.
That's amazing. Okay? We've all got to do what we've got to do. Nancy, thank you for being here. I haven't seen you for a week since we spent those lovely few days together. How has your week been since your birthday? When for those of you that weren't listening last week, it was Nancy's birthday when we were filming her wonderful TV show.
You are asking a leading question, aren't you?
I am. How has your week been? I do know, ladies and gentlemen, I do know what her week has been.
Because I've got a hospital bracelet on.
You're wearing a hospital
bracelet. Which is
bracelet.
a really nice addition to my wardrobe. James, I happened to spend about 11 hours in the Emerge at the QE2 the other day. And I want to say that you're a writer. If you ever want to write short stories, you need to just go sit your butt down in the ER, close your eyes and listen. You don't even have to see what's going on. And it is, I'll tell you, it's a lot of material.
There's a lot going on. I mean, it's one of those funny things at hospitals where people's happiest days and worst days are often in this same place. Mm-hmm. It's there's not many places like that where you can have the best day of your life and the worst day of your life in the same building, often with the same person. It's much strange, and it's an interesting profession, of course, for anyone working there. They're experiencing this every day.
Absolutely, but it's also somewhere. It's one of those rare places in a way where the world meets. Mm. You know, we often walk through life in our own ideological bubble, meeting people, talking to people who are a lot like us. Yeah. And the ER serves up a whole lot of different people, and some in really difficult circumstances, and some with a lot of anger just ready to explode out of them because they don't want to be in this situation where they have to wait. Right. And that's the nature of our healthcare system. So I got a knock on the head a couple of weeks ago, and I did not know you could have a kind of delayed concussion.
And so you've been, you've had double vision. You've been, I mean, so it was touch and go. That's it. I mean, the fact that you are here now. I mean, what a trooper, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that Nancy has fought through this concussion. I love the fact that it was. I love how here. The emergency room is such the emergency. You've abbreviated it to emerge. There's not enough time to say "NC." It's such an emergency that you have to. I suppose ER is even lazier. And in England accent, it's A&E in England.
Do you want me to pick on British words?
Yeah, go for it. Hit me. I've made a career out of it. I need some new material. Well, it's funny. We talk about new material. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, the reason, of course, we were together last week was it was genuinely, I waxed lyrical about this on last week's episode. Such an honor to be a guest on your show, which continues now. We are in it now. Can I ask how Showing Up came about? Obviously, your incredible best-selling book, From Showing Off to Showing Up, touched so many people. And now, for the fact there's a TV show, I mean, in some ways it's a spin-off in that it's you taking the lessons that you've learned and indeed readers learned from that, and you're going and meeting people that have that similar outlook. Tell me how Showing Up, the TV show, came about.
It's funny when you say that. I realize that it is also a description of me at this stage of my TV career. So it's been a long time since I was on a daily TV show. And when I was in my younger years, I, looking back, realized how much showing off I was doing. You know, I was wearing a mask, I was acting confident, I was disguising a lot of insecurity. You and I, when we first met over our books, we read each other's books at the same time, and all these lights were going off like, oh my gosh, we're sharing a brain, a little insecure brain. And yet, people who look at us would say, oh, wow, they're, two of the most confident people I know. So the beautiful thing, I think, about our books is that we deconstructed that myth. And that was, I know in my case and in yours, really empowering for a lot of people who read it. The gift that I've had is that so many people have come to me and said, wow, it's like we've lived very different lives, but you're telling my story. So that was, then. Now I am able to do this new TV show with such a different attitude and such a sense of liberation. Like when I'm headed out on a particular day for a shoot with this amazing crew I work with, I have no sense of, oh, am I going to ask the right questions? Am I going to do well enough? Am I going to be enough is basically, the question so many of us ask in different ways through our life. And now I know that I have everything I need, and I just need to show up in a sense of true presence and listen. And if I make a mistake, that's just part of the plan. It's okay.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that I'm a mistake just because I've made one, which is what I used to think.
Yeah, very true. And do you find that a big part? Do you think it makes a difference that the guests are obviously people that you've handpicked? They're people that are people that show up, and that you're turning up there with a comfort level. Do you think that either of us could apply this newfound, I won't say wisdom, but this newfound way of viewing the world and viewing our work? Do you think that we could still apply that if we were having to sit in a room like in your case, with Oprah Winfrey and Mel Gibson? Do you think that now you could apply that same mindset of going, what will be, or is it that actually now that we've both chosen lives and careers that involve being around people that we choose to be around?
I think that's a brilliant question, and I can only say that presence is a practice for me. And I think I didn't have a practice of presence then at all. So when I was sitting in the hallway waiting to interview Mel Gibson, and he was at the top of his game then, he was the director, producer, and star of Braveheart.
Right.
And it was a huge movie.
Yes, this was pre-Sugar Tits, is what we're saying, listeners. This was pre-Sugar Tits, and
I forgot where we were.
Yes. This was before that we knew he was a Nazi, but so he was cool at this point, and it was, yes. But that's what I emphasized. This was he was not school. Everyone loved him,
and you've done this exact same thing. Like we can go back and forth with all the famous celebrities we've interviewed. It's funny. It's like a ping pong game,
right?
But really, it was me putting celebrity on a pedestal and allowing that to make me feel like a country bumpkin. Like, what am I doing here? I don't deserve this. Not enough. Not enough. Yeah. So when I sat down across from him and he said, how are you doing? And you really only have, as you know, James, about 30 seconds while they get you mic'd up. Before someone says, we got speed, which means that they're rolling cameras and you just have to launch into your interview because you've only got about 4 minutes, 5 tops. And as I was sitting down and I said, hi, how are you? And he said, how are you doing? For some reason, I told the truth. And I said, I'm actually really nervous because it was the most nervous I had ever been. And he looked at me, he said, you're nervous of talking to me? Oh, I can help with that. And he all of a sudden started making bizarre faces, put his fingers in his mouth, stretched his mouth, stuck out his tongue. And then he stopped after 10 seconds and said, there, do you feel better? And it was like he'd let all the air out of the balloon and we were just two human beings.
Nice.
And all the celebrity, all of the status was all gone. And that to me is what presence is.
Totally. And I think that's such a good lesson for anyone that is doing things, and whether it be being interviewed for a job or presenting at university, or anyone pitching for something, or in meeting or interviewing a celebrity, is that it says far more about them if when you go into the meeting or the interview or whatever it is. Because there are some celebrities that when you do try and show up and be relaxed and be yourself, that actually their egos are so out of control that because you're not showing them the correct amount of reverence and bowing to the Lord Almighty of celebrity.
Rodney Dangerfield.
Right. Well, there we go. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I mean, in my case, Anne Hathaway, and
really,
yeah, and because it's not that you're being disrespectful, but you're trying to be just normal, but because you're
meeting
not
as equals.
Yes, that's it. Like we're both in a room, both with a job to do. In actual fact, you're being paid to be there. I mean, in essence, we're being paid there, but we're not being paid as much to be there. And yet we're there to promote their multi-million-dollar movie. And so, really we're doing them the favor. But then when they treat you like dirt, it says a lot about, and I would say that's the fascinating thing, is that I always worried, what if I'm not bowing and scraping enough? And once I realized that if I should just go in as myself, I'm there in a professional capacity. I've not waited for them at stage door. I've not chased them down the street. Like, we're in a room to do a job that benefits them.
Right.
And so again, not that but just by being myself, it always said a lot more about them if they took umbrage with that because they wanted the worship.
How grounded did you feel when you interviewed Seinfeld the first time?
I mean, completely. And that's pretty much that's one of those pivotal, life-changing moments, I'd say, that basically changed it all, where, because I had so many nerves, as you can imagine, and just
can't imagine
walking around like New York, and I had these. It's funny, little things. This is so pathetic. I'm addicted to the blue lip cell. The blue lip cell. Blue lip cell. I can,
No, I bet I can find you a more natural alternative.
Yes. So I'm addicted to the blue lip cell, and if I don't put it on, and I've heard the people weirdly, I've genuinely heard of people going to rehab for lip cell addictions. Anyway, so I haven't put it on for an hour, so now my lips are getting a bit red. I've had this for years. Long story short, my worst nightmare is getting somewhere not having one. I get to New York the day before, realize I don't have a blue lip cell, and I'm doing Seinfeld at 5 p.m. that day. So I walk around New York, and I'm not joking. I buy every single different lip cell I can find from every drugstore, every single, you name it, hundreds, and I can't find one with the exact right. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to turn up to meet Seinfeld, and my mouth's going to be dry anyway because of nerves, and I've got bright red lips, which looks like I'm wearing lipstick, which 15 years ago wasn't as cool as it is now in a man. And so I'm absolutely terrified, and I think, well, this is it. I've got to go, and this is all going to go wrong because I haven't got my blue lips on. I put my coat on, and I went to put the hotel key card in my pocket, and in my jacket pocket was a blue lip cell, and I was like, everything's going to be okay. Anyway, that was separate to the fact that, yes. So when I went in there, my biggest fear was, what if he's a jerk?
Right.
Because I've got a job to do, and there's certain things I need to get and go back with. And what if I go into this interview? I'm going to have to push for those things if he's not playing ball.
And did he know you were a comedian?
Yes.
Oh.
And I'm going to have to. I want to be his friend, but I'm going to have to be professional and demand what we need for the mag. So does this mean that we clash? And so worrying about all those things, and then discovering that he was just an absolute delight, treated me like an equal, which is ridiculous, and just was completely. It was definitely a moment when I go, oh my God, if I can get through this, I don't need to be nervous about anything ever again. And so I would say, even though that's now 12, 13 years ago, it's still something I think about a lot. But you've turned it back on me.
You noticed. In fact, I didn't even answer your question yet about how this show came.
That's exactly what I'm coming back to. So how answer the bloody question. Nancy Regan, TV legend Nancy Regan refuses to answer a question.
It's Regan's Ramble.
Regan's Weekly Ramble. Tell us the. I'm such a huge fan of the show, and I've been sharing it all over my social media. So I'm sure that most people listening have watched it. But tell us how it came about and what the concept is.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing.
Yeah. And I can say that because everyone who comes up to me or emails me and says, oh my gosh, I love your show, I say, it's actually not my show. It's a team of people. It's the best working experience I've ever had in my career. And everybody on the team is like completely focused on making sure our guest shines. And our guests are full of light anyway. So they do their own shining. And for us, it's just about making sure that we amplify that in the best way possible. So
And
love it.
And you immerse yourselves into their lives. You go into their homes, you go into their spaces. And I will say that the team that you're working with, you told me how great they were and how it's like a family, and you hear that a lot, and often it's true. But when I met your team, I mean, just the most
Found out for
amazing,
yourself?
phenomenal people. I'm not just saying it because they are like literally meters away from me right now. But it's absolutely true. Just like, I mean, it was truly, I was as one would be, like, I was nervous about it. Partly because I wanted to go well, also nervous about it for dozens of different reasons. But yeah,
it didn't surprise you that they were some of the people involved in the making of We Are Canadian.
That absolutely blew me away.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I mean, I'm Canadian, probably the most important and biggest viral video of the last 20 years in Canada. And the fact that they were not only the geniuses behind it, but also so selflessly didn't want their names attached to it. I mean, who does that? Talk about the most Canadian thing ever. Like, we're gonna create the best thing ever. We don't want to be paid for it. We're gonna pay for it ourselves.
All volunteer.
And then we don't want anyone to know that we did it. I mean,
they would also want me to say they were part of a bigger group,
right?
And it was people from all different sort of careers, walks of life,
Right.
marketing agencies.
Yeah. It's the most Canadian thing ever to the fact that the video itself is now the new Canadian national anthem. At least it's one that I can remember the lyrics for. And
Terre de nos aïeux.
Yeah, okay.
Have you learned it in French yet?
I have not.
Oh,
I'm working
James.
on it.
And you have your passport?
I know.
Come on.
I know. I did sing it very bad. That's the one saving grace of doing your citizenship ceremony on Zoom, is you can mute and sing badly. So
here's the answer to your question. So I was actually called by the president of Eastlink, who I had met, and I met him socially before, but he asked me if I would be interested in having a coffee. And I thought he's probably going to ask me if I want to MC a gala event, because I do a lot of MC.
Yeah.
And instead, he said, we'd like you to do a show for us. And I know I probably shouldn't have been when I think about it now, but I was sort of shocked, surprised. And I hadn't contemplated, at the time I was 58, and I hadn't contemplated a broadcaster coming to me and saying, we want you to have a show as a 58-year-old woman. And I think that's amazing, first of all.
It's not that amazing. You want a TV legend to be back on TV,
yeah.
but I know what you mean. I know it's wonderful that they had the genius and foresight to do so.
Quick note to the audience. James is incapable of talking about me without using the bizarre phrase CTV legend Nancy Regan. And when we did a comedy show recently, I made it a drinking game because I popped up in the middle of his act and said, okay, that's it. I can't handle it anymore. Every time he says that, everybody just take a drink.
Take a shot. Everyone had to do a shot every time I said CTV legend Nancy Regan. The audience were shit-faced, but I will say we raised a lot of money for Romero House in St. John. So
they bought more booze.
Yeah, they bought more booze. They donated more, and a lot of good was done.
Yes, absolutely. And now I'm Eastlink CTV non-legend.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Eastlink TV legend.
Eastlink, thank you. Okay,
and then if I need to abbreviate it, it's ETV legend.
Oh, very nice.
It's like a merge. I'm getting down with the abbreviations.
You're good. You're
Continue.
good.
Well,
so basically, I'll make it short now because we've stretched it out so long. Your two listeners are going to be really bored.
and they're all in this room. And we're not even recording this. This is actually this is
this work?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's not recording. It's basically yeah.
So I said, "What kind of show?" And he said, "Well, what would you like to do?" Mm-hmm. And I mean, as a TV host, that's a pretty extraordinary opportunity to say, what would I like to do? And I just sort of, my brain scrambled and I said, well, it would have to align with what I'm interested in at this stage of my life. And he said, okay, what's that? And I said, okay, 3 words. And these 3 words just came out of my mouth. I'm big on alliteration, James, so it's no surprise. Community, connection, and contribution. It would have to, it would have to be really sitting squarely in one of those areas. And he said, sounds great. And so basically he said, go away and, write up a pitch and come back and hopefully we'll be able to air it and get behind you for financing and so on. And it's been just the best process. I love working with Eastlink. They have been a dream broadcaster. And, you think about all the networks that are cutting back on Canadian content. Yeah. And this is a great example of this East Coast broadcaster that actually has tentacles across the country. And they are putting so much money into production and telling people stories. And I don't know, they're kind of thrilled with what we're doing because it's an antidote to the heaviness of the world right now. It's just lightness.
Well, and it's all of those things, and it's what they're all about, which is as you said, community, and so many other shows now, as you say, are making so many cutbacks whereby if someone's covering someone, the amount of time they get with them, they almost stretch. They pretend that they're with them for longer. They go in, bash it out. You're actually, even though you know most of the subjects, you're actually immersing yourselves in their lives. And for a broadcaster to have that kind of foresight to allow that kind of budget where you can actually go in and spend time and not just bash it out in half a day, it's phenomenal.
And we show up in their lives, and they are showing up. They're showing up in really dynamic, authentic ways in the world, but also making it somehow better, more beautiful.
Right.
And so, now in the first season, I knew everybody, and those were my handpicks. When I went and said, here is a proposal for some episodes. And I was given the gift of working with RPM Productions, and I just felt right away we clicked. And that's just, they are the ones that have given me this amazing crew who have done work all over the world. And yeah. So it's all good.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, I love the show. I love watching you do anything, but the fact that the show is just so beautiful and just, again, the people are beautiful. What they're sharing from their souls is beautiful. The connection you have with the subjects is, but also just the cinematography, the footage, everything right down from the smallest detail on someone's desk through to a gorgeous, stunning, drone shot. It's all majestic. So I guess my question is it's so exciting that there's a second season. I'm so honored to be part of the second season. What were the surprises that you had during the first season? What were the things that, for example, that you knew what you wanted to do, you had a plan, and obviously you meticulously worked out structures of episodes. But going into, say, for example, the first episode, what were the pleasant and indeed otherwise surprises, that things that you weren't expected that you had to navigate or emotionally kind of figure out?
Well, when you ask me that question, I think about magic, because that's the beauty of doing this kind of filming where you are able to take your time, you're able to actually get to know someone, and you do go in with a plan, but your plan should always so think of it as a garment that is, instead of sewn together with thread, it's sewn together with elastic thread.
Right.
So it can expand into whatever kind of magic shows up.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that phrase again.
I like it.
And our first episode was with Ransford Nogler.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful way to start, because I think there were some people on the crew who, understandably didn't really know what this new show was going to be like. Mm-hmm. And we were going down to visit Ransford, who lives in a trailer on the highway near outside of Bridgewater, basically. And he is a phenomenal folk artist. And he's just one of the kindest, most sincere human beings you're ever going to meet in your life.
Right.
And he makes folk art that is intended to make people smile. Mm. He wants, when somebody has his work in their house, he wants them to smile every time they see it.
And he's the perfect example of someone that is showing up and is never showing off. What I loved so much about that in the first episode was this was not someone which, again, he's not someone that is craving media attention. Whereas, arguably you could say that, I am, as part of my job, there are times where I am needing to, or indeed mentally wanting to show off. He is not someone who is sat there begging people to come in and do this. And it was such an amazing thing to go in where it could not have been a more authentic way to start, because he does what he does for the love of it and for the love of bringing people happiness. But he's opposite of someone that is kind of chasing it for ego purposes.
So I knew that going in, but I think probably the expectation was kind of low, and then it just blew everybody away.
Because it was just real, because it's all from the heart. And
gosh.
And he wasn't planning what might she ask and what shall I say. It was just
totally showing up.
Yes.
As I coach people to go on stage, just totally being present, not thinking about how they're performing, but what they're contributing. And the really fun moment in that for me behind the scenes was when Ransford and I were outside at one point, and one of the crew was flying a drone around. And I pointed out the drone and I said, Ransford, look at that. I said, that's actually a camera. And he looked at me like, what? And he's had no experience of, technical equipment like that. And I'm waiting for him to actually make a folk art drone.
Oh, wow.
I expect it anytime.
So you're used to, so it's funny, one of the common recurring themes of the series is people being surprised or scared of drones, because my dog Willow also was not a fan of Chris's drone at all.
The truth is that we didn't show up to interview you, James. It was all about Willow.
I know. Well, I mean, she undoubtedly stole the show and also pretty much followed a brief better than I did, because I mean, clearly, not that there's anything, but in an interview, as anyone, mostly people listening will know, you guide people a certain way, and basically directors will generally find a very polite way of saying to me, don't waffle, don't ramble, save it for that podcast that no one listens to, because but because you've got to stay focused. But when Willow insisted on being in pretty much every frame, but was asked to stay still so that editing could be not a nightmare, she did exactly what she was told. So arguably Willow is people say don't work with dogs or animals or children. I mean, James Mullinger should be added to that list, and dogs should be moved out of it.
You should always have Willow, because you never stop moving.
Right.
And that's part of your charm.
But she's still.
She's and it's like she's there anchoring you. That's what, when she was sitting in that chair beside you when we were doing the interview, true. I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's like she anchors him there.
Yes, yeah. And it's funny you say that. I mean, people talk about, dogs being or service dogs being there for mental stability. I mean, I, as you know, due to ADHD, I never, ever, ever sit still. Right now, my legs are jiggling. Even when I sit down to watch a movie that I've been desperate to see for ages, after 2 minutes, I'm like, I should go and do this. I should go and write a joke. Blah, blah, blah. And yet, having a dog sits on your lap. You're forced to stay there, and they are very grounding. My one more question about the TV show before we go into telling everyone about the very exciting thing that you are embarking on, or that we are doing together, that you are undertaking. It's exciting, everyone. Keep listening.
Do you know the term on this side of the ocean? I don't know if it's a term used in Britain. Do you know the term barf bag?
Yes, yeah.
Do you have any of those around?
Oh, well, you want to? Yeah,
because when you talk about talking about that, I feel like I might need.
Yes, I can understand that. So that's how. So British listeners, that's a sick bag. A sick bag, or if you're talking about women from the north of England, we'll call it a handbag. Friday night. It's all right, we won't offend anyone.
Throw up in your handbag.
That's tell you what handbags are for. It's like you go. I say that clearly, they just vomit everywhere, all over the floor. That is British city centres. It's not just northern women. It's all women across the UK. It's all men and women, just to be clear.
Okay.
And anyone else. Okay.
We digress.
I've got a few. Just have a few disclaimers here and there.
Actually, that is what we do. We digress. Every time we talk,
yes,
we digress. Listening to a James and Nancy conversation. We went for a walk along the Halifax waterfront a few weeks ago, a month
Yeah.
ago. And we had the most hilarious conversation. Afterwards, I said we should have recorded it.
Yeah.
Because
And then got someone to try and like chart it. Yeah. It would look like an Amherst family tree just all over the place. Okay. So
sorry to those
offending Brits on it's funny, I get more the only complaints I get about the podcast generally is when I say disparage things about things back home, it's Brits that have moved to Canada who have still feel some kind of loyalty and pride, and they're like, well, the thing that people always say is that they say the Canadians don't know that you're joking. They don't know that you're exaggerating. I think they do, but they're really worried that when I talk about how every British city centre is a war zone, which it is, or that the royal family are all corrupt, which they are, but they're like you need to have more pride in where you're from. Just because you like your new home doesn't. Anyway, I'm sorry, guys.
Canadians do have a sense of humor.
Right, they do. Canadians do understand. They understand, and again, they understand things, and they're starting to see more. Now they're seeing, that King Charles, cozying up with Trump and not helping the Commonwealth. They're seeing what the royal family really like. Anyway, a little bit of politics. My name is Ben Elton. Good night. What were the changes you wanted to make? That was a joke which only 2 British listeners would have understood. But as you know, in stand-up, sometimes I like to make a joke that is just for like one person in the audience, and hear that one person killing themselves laughing. So if I do a show in Vancouver and I'll mention like a tiny town in New Brunswick.
Funny.
Or I'll do an Amherst joke in Vancouver. There'll be 3 people laughing, and it's like those 3. That's to me, that's the sound of thousands.
And it's like an Easter egg for those people.
Exactly, that's exactly it. So, final question on the TV show before we move on to what we're doing. What were the things you wanted to change for the second season? How excited were you to get a second season? And what can people look forward to in the second season?
Oh my goodness! You're going back into your junket.
Yes, well, that's it. Well, the trick.
A lot of questions.
We've only got time for one question, so I'll put 3 in one without taking a breath, and then you have to answer all of them.
10-second answer for you to pay you back. I would say nothing radical is changing in the second season. Right. In fact, they've signed us for 2 and 3.
Wow! Well, congratulations. So, there we go. Now you can clap yourself. Sound effects. There we go. Soon. I can say I've given Nancy Regan the clap now. That's a great.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the sort of thing I expected when I came on here today.
We're 40 minutes in, so anyone still listening, they're on board with it.
They deserve an Easter egg.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And it is almost Easter for them.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Wow. STDs and Easter tied up together. Who knew?
Great.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So.
So it's more of the same, but as you do anything, you even going back to sewing, when you're sewing a project, as you do more of it, you get better,
right? And
you realize efficiencies, but you also realize new opportunities for creativity, and that's happening. So there's magic just happening all around it, and it's going to continue to we'll go a little further afield as we go. But
well, I guess one of the most exciting things that you're undertaking, which does lead us into
interviewing you.
Well, no, not that. Is that you are have agreed to a challenge. So for those of you that
did I agree?
Yeah, you definitely agreed. Yeah. You know what? And Chris will back me up on this. It's on film, so you can't get out of it.
Okay.
So you very kindly agreed last week on your birthday when we were filming at my warm-up show at Long Bay, where I was testing new material. Worst birthday gift ever. I basically put you on the spot, and I will say, also happy birthday to lovely Daphne, who was in the front row. It was her birthday as well. She is Nancy's birthday twin. You accepted the challenge to basically perform stand-up on stage with me at the Mermaid Theatre in Windsor in front of what I believe is between 200 to 300 people. Now, obviously, I have helped other people do stand-up before. Most of them traditionally have not already got tons of stage experience like you have. So how do you feel about the fact that in the next couple of days you will be performing stand-up for because again, and we've performed together on comedy shows and you've been very funny, but now you are doing stand-up. We've obviously been going over some of your material. How do you feel about it and how do you feel about the big show?
Some of my material might be overstating it.
It is material. It's material. I mean, it is material. Because
and that I accepted the challenge might also be overstating it.
True.
You issued the challenge in front of a room full of people. And I ended up letting them dictate by, I did a little,
I did
measurement of their clapping and decided, yeah, okay.
That's true. That's true. You were not.
They gave me the clap too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, a room full of people at a brewery in Ross Ailes. Give Nancy the clap. There we go. Long bay. You can put that on your poster. Yeah, you're right. You weren't given much choice. A room full of people cheering you on. But what a great. But that energy you felt in that tiny brewery, 45 people packed in this tiny space. Imagine that energy. So I will be bringing you on stage to deliver your very first. Official, like as I say, you've been funny on stage many times, stand-up set. How do you feel? I mean, going through your book and reading, one of the things that we talked about when we were talking about ideas is obviously two things. One is Nancy Regan saying things that people wouldn't expect, and the other thing is, oh no, it's okay. We always leave everything in. I've actually both burped and farted on this podcast. Not this one specifically because you're in here. I'm holding them in. As soon as I walk out of this room, it's going to be. No, but yeah, we don't edit out anything. But we talked about self-deprecation and which is something that I love to do in my act, which is making myself. What I love, and when I go through and I read in your book about this, whether it be a story about Oprah or the fact that your admiration for the work of Brené Brown, that I feel like any bit that's kind of like, well, I tried to do this like Brené Brown, but this happened, or I tried to be like Oprah like this, but this happened. Like anything that is something going wrong, that is, I feel like, just all guaranteed comedy gold, especially coming up with someone who is already a seasoned performer.
That's good advice for me as well, because there's a lot of seriousness behind that, because my fear of making mistakes was something I was always hiding.
Right.
And so, if I'd make a mistake, I would be my biggest critic. And so when I think of some of my funny stories from broadcasting, they were about making mistakes.
Right.
And I also, I'm sure you feel this, although it would be more natural for you as a comedian, but as an MC, I always, once I get out on stage and I'm trying to take my own advice about making sure it's about being present and instead of presenting, you know what I mean? And focusing on contribution instead of performance. And then still there can be, a lot of adrenaline.
Yes.
It's only when I get my first laugh that I relax.
Right. And it's exactly the same discipline with stand-up, and stand-up comedians have been doing it for decades, feel the exact same way. Get that first laugh, and the only difference is with stand-up, it's like get the next one and get the next one, and
that's what worries me.
well, one of the main keys is that, like I say, I've seen you being funny on stage numerous times. A huge part of the beats of stand-up is just when you deliver that punchline, leaving the pause, letting the audience know that it's a punchline, pulling a face. I mean, this is one of the things that I learned when I started playing bigger rooms. And again, this is the kind of room where the laughs will be big and long, is that you can elongate the laugh. And I only started to do it actually when I was doing some shows for Horizon Healthcare in January, and they videoed one of the laughs, and they were like, wow, that was like a 25-second laugh. And she said, I'm going to video every night and try and get like the longest laugh. So then I made a challenge to myself to, how do I stretch it? Like so on the first one, I did a 25-second laugh that just like punchline, blah, 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 blah. That's a long time. And again, especially when you think about if you're timing a show and you need to do an hour, you need to do 5 minutes or whatever it is. And if a laugh lasts 30 seconds and that's on every joke. So I worked out ways that sometimes you do the joke and just an arched eyebrow or cocking the face or grinning foolishly. But whereas in an MC role and also a stand-up before you know to do this, you might do that, and then while the laugh's going, kind of look at the ground or go and grab a sip of water. But instead, you're elongating the laugh with a facial expression, a body movement.
And that's not so different than interviewing someone, because one of the biggest mistakes I think people make when they are doing an interview, conducting an interview, is if there's silence after someone stops answering, they just want to fill it.
Right.
As humans, we don't want silence. That's why we say whatever, and we jump in. But if you leave someone hanging after their answer, their natural inclination is to fill the silence.
Right.
And they sometimes come out with the best answers if you just let it breathe. So that's what I hear you saying. And I've watched you, I've studied you doing that. And I also noticed our friend Ron James is posting some funny and very cutting stuff about about the political situation right now. He's pretty political in his humor. And I was watching a video yesterday and I noticed it was from a live show and he got a big laugh. And then just all he did was he moved his eyes from left to right. His face stayed the same and it elongated the laugh.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, this is okay. I get that.
Yeah, those little things make a difference. And I think another huge, which I just thought of, a really crucial piece of advice which someone gave me a few years in, which I wish I'd known sooner, which is that obviously you always reference the situation. So an example is, when you're playing bars and clubs where someone would drop a glass or a siren goes by, in the case of the England I was describing earlier, you can't not reference it, because if you ignore it, then suddenly the audience is removed from the fact that they're in a real situation. Essentially, you're showing off and not showing up. You're not actually in the moment. It's so a glass breaks and you don't reference it. Suddenly they're like, oh, this person's just like reading off a script.
They're performing.
Yes, that's it. Whereas the glass breaks, you go, I remember, the old hacky ones would have been, I remember my first drink, mate, or the siren goes past and you turn to someone that's been a heckler during the show. They've come for you, mate. Or don't tell them I'm here. You've got to reference the situation. Now, one of the mistakes that people make when they're new with comedy is you can't not reference it if it's not going well. But it's funny, I often see this, sometimes people self-sabotage by going, God, this is not going well. Is it, something like that, and then it just makes the audience feel uncomfortable.
Oh,
but if you can comfortably reference what just happened, and you've seen me doing it during warm-up shows, where a joke might not land, and then I kind of grab an imaginary piece of paper and a pen and go, for example, if we were in Windsor doing Mermaid, I would go, note to self, do not make jokes about Donald Trump in Amherst. They hate it and they will stare at you blankly. And they were right. And
you just improv.
Yeah, and you improv it.
Basically.
Yeah, and you reference the situation. And I've seen it so many times when a new comic can be bombing. And then the first time they become themselves and go, this is not going well, boom, massive laugh. And it's like, and the sole reason that is that the audience has finally got to see them. And this isn't going to be the case with you because you are going to be yourself up there. But it's like reference today. If something doesn't land exactly how you want it to, don't make out that you think it's shit and it's not going well, but equally go, James was wrong. That joke will not go down well in Windsor. You know what I mean?
James was wrong. Not everyone can do stand-up.
Yeah, that's something like that. So we have 1 minute left. So is there anything you would like to ask me before our big show together? And let's face it, the first time we do stand-up together, and if, as I suspect, it goes spectacularly well, possibly the first of many times we do stand-up together as we embark on the showing off tour.
The showing off tour.
The cross-country showing off tour.
I just want to make an observation, and that is when I coach people in public speaking, I say it's just like a first date. And that's what I just heard you say. It's about connection. If you're not connected to the audience and you don't make them feel there's a connection, then how can any magic happen?
Right.
So I'm just going to go to Windsor tomorrow with you. I'm going to show up on the stage and it's a great practice for a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It's with a head injury. Oh my gosh. A concussed recovering perfectionist. Excellent. But you know what? That's great too, because it lowers the bar a little bit. So what? What's the worst thing that can happen?
And that's the biggest thing, as you say, as a recovering perfectionist, to be able to go, what will be, let it happen. A joke doesn't get a laugh. It's not the end of the world. There's far worse things going on in the world.
I'll just make you look funnier.
Well, okay, yeah, that's really why I planned this whole thing.
I know.
And
devious strategy.
No, it's definitely not that. No, do not mess this up. It needs to be perfect. The two bits of advice I was given when I started out from a stand-up kind of, I took a course when I first started in 2004, and the two things they'd said was that obviously, it's like, and you know this anyway, you have fun up there. If you don't look like you're having fun, then they're not going to have fun. They need to believe. And then he always said this thing over and over again, which I didn't really, he was like, it's just fucking about. It's just fucking, it's all we're doing is fucking about. We're just having fun, and that's all it is. We're just going out there. And when he used to say it over and over, I never really quite got it. And it took me many, many years to kind of go, yeah, that really is what it is. Like we're just a group of people up on stage. We're a group of people in a room together, all wanting the same thing, which is laughter. And that's joy.
You just brought my late friend Audrey Parker into the room. Yesterday was her birthday.
No way.
And the best advice anyone has ever given me, and usually I wouldn't share it in an interview, but I will in this one because I think your audience can take the language, given that you just dropped a couple F-bombs. I was preparing for something on TV, and I was, not feeling in my own zone. And I did a practice run for her, and she was just such a wise soul. And she said, Nancy, you know what? You really know your stuff. You're going to be great. The audience is going to like you. You just have to do one thing. And I was like, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? And I always joke now that it was really 3 sentences, 4 words, but really 3 sentences. Calm the fuck down. And it is the best life advice I've ever been given. And usually when we're all flustered about something, it's that. It's like, guess what?
Yeah.
Does this really matter in the big scheme of things?
Yeah. When did we ever do something better in a panic? Never.
Boom.
Boom. Wow.
That was a high five, by the way.
Yes, it was. Yes. Just in case what else would they think?
Neither of us slapped
What else would they
across
think
the
we'd be
face.
snapping? God bless you, Audrey. That was great advice. And happy birthday for yesterday. And we're thinking of you.
And she always said, be kind because you can. There you go.
That's a beautiful way to end it. Tune in next week to hear what goes down at Nancy's stand-up debut. Nancy Regan, thank you so much for joining me on my Weekly Ramble. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And tune in
Thank
to
you, James.
Thank you so much, honestly. Everyone should tune in to Showing Up with Nancy Regan. You can catch it on Easter, you can catch it on YouTube, you can catch it everywhere else. Follow Nancy Regan on all the social medias, and I will see you next week. Any questions for next week, email me at comedy@jamesmanager.com. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Love you all very much.
Manager's Weekly Ramble.